right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Leadership Blend television show with your amazing host, Ricardo D. Rice. And today we're doing a kind of a dual show for all those individuals out there, especially my nonprofit leaders who are interested in buying a house or looking for new leadership thoughts. I'm going to combine both of those for you today. So he's a rare find. So I got him on, I dragged him on. Shouts out to his PR person, Mrs. Thoroughbred over there, Mr. Toya. And yeah, so we're going to get right into it. So I'm going to have him introduce himself and we're going to take it from there.
Thanks, Ricardo. Appreciate you guys having me as well. So my name is Nasim Hakim. I've been in lending for, seems like a million years, about 16 years, in real estate finance. Also just recently published a book that I'm sure we're going to talk more about today, right? Never Have a Bad Day. A must read, must get. So appreciate you again.
I like that. A little must read, must. Okay, all right. So tell me about the book. What is it about? What's in it? All that good stuff.
So high level, you know, we all have choices about how we view our day. Right? It's all about perspective, right? So when you look at the cover of the book, you see a man looking outside. There's sun, there's snow, there's rain, there's, you know, all type of outside elements that could really change the way you view your day, right? Here's the goal. No matter what is outside or what's in front of you, you choose how to control your day. And to be honest with you, as soon as you wake up, you already won the day. Right? It's already accomplished, right? Anything after that is a choice. So with that being said, it's not that we don't have challenging days or we don't have days where we're stretched. But what I'm saying is that as long as you have goals before you leave your house every day and you have intentions, and if you accomplish that, each day you would feel accomplished. And that's the goal of Never Have a Bad Day.
So how is that specific to leaders?
So with leaders, trust me, you know, it's a lot of times it'll be a train wreck in leadership. You know, you in the mortgage industry, you thought your day is going to start out like this and you miss closing.
Especially in 2008.
Right.
Especially in 2008.
You know, as soon as, you know, COVID hits, that changed the way a lot of us are doing business, right? So when you look out the window, how do you face that day? You know, because, you know, it can't stop. You know, life goes on, right? So how do you continue through adversity? So what we did with Never Have a Bad Day is myself and two other authors. It was a collaboration. Both authors are good friends of mine, and we all lead in a different way. So one is a pastor, one is a chief of police for the county he lives in, and then myself in real estate finance. And all of us at the height of our game. And we've seen a lot of adversity during our time, right? So when you read a book about leadership, it always tells you how to get there. Nobody talks about the hardship and what you have to go through to get there. So this book is like a daily bread. It's going to give you the tools every day when you're like, how do I brace for this? Or am I worthy of this job? It's in there. It'll remind you what I went through. You just pick it up and read it again. It'll help you move forward.
So does your section revolve around affirmations, like to start your day that I am this or I am that, or it's going to be this or going to be that? Because, you know, with leaders, we wake up and our personal day usually takes a back seat to our professional day because we're trying to run organizations. Today I came in, I had a magazine intern that had to start. I got all these people that have to start. So when I wake up, it's like, okay, it's going to be a great day. And then I get on set and I'm like, oh, so you didn't bring SD cards or you didn't bring the mics that you were supposed to bring. So how is that? Are affirmations necessary for leaders in organizations? Is that what you use to, like, when you get up, say I'm having a great day? Or
I think that's important, right? You know, to be able to set the tone, right? And be positive and put the words out there so you feel that energy. But that alone is not enough, right? It's being fluid. It's being able to adapt to change. Right? Is being able to get through something and you have a wall. Okay, now this book is going to say, okay, Nas been through this part. He got to this wall in his industry, right? I'm going to mirror that in mine and figure out how to get past this, right? Because every day we're going to your point, things are going to happen. And the more they happen, the more wisdom and experience you gain, but you have to go through it. Many people stop their day because they're like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Or there's something in there called the Imposter Syndrome. I'm not worthy. I don't have enough confidence. I question my abilities, right? So we talk about how to get over that. So it's affirmations along with work, right? And you have to,
you got to put in some kind of work.
Put in some kind of work to make it happen. Just sitting here and saying, you know what? I hope I get rich. It's not going to fall out the sky, right? You have to put the work in to do it. So Never Have a Bad Day is not an easy road, but it's perspective once again. And people that you see who are elite and great at leadership have a perspective and a foundation that I am going to conquer my day, right? I am going to accomplish what I set out to do. And I am going to end this day successfully and start the next day the same way, right? it's consistency. It's a whole lot that goes with this, right? But to your point, it is affirmation along with putting in the work.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to pick up more with Mr. Nasim on the Leadership Men Television Show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, so we're coming back with our guest, Mr. Nasim. So you talked about imposter syndrome. Explain that to me.
You know, the imposter syndrome is what we as leaders, parents, Fortune 500, leaders, right? We all go through this, right? So we pretty much question ourselves, are we ready for this? Are we worthy of this? Even in compliments, you talk to somebody sometimes, say, hey, you're doing a good job. It's hard to receive them because you don't feel like you're doing enough.
Yeah, I just did that with somebody on the stand.
That's why
I just did it with somebody on the stand.
That's why I brought it up, right? And it's habitual, it's generational. And the only way to overcome that, and you're reading this book, is to really take a look back inside of yourself, right? Introspection, and do a life resume. And what I do with a lot of my clients is we talk about a life resume, not just at work. What's your life resume? Like personally for me, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York during the crack era. Most of my friends dead, in jail, or somewhere not found, right? I went to 3 different high schools in 4 years. I moved around a lot. I wasn't even a military family, but I did, right? Didn't think I was going to college. I went to college. Graduated college, worked on Capitol Hill. Don't even know how that happened, right? So the point I'm saying is that if I look back at my resume and where I'm at today, am I worthy? I am. I've been through way more adversity than work or what the environment's going to give me. And that's what we have to take a look at. And we also feel like, well, you know what? This is my struggle. So what makes mine any different than yours? It's not relatable like that. It's your struggle, right? It's your life. And that's why it's special. We have to acknowledge that. And we don't. Because all we do is watch social media and TV and try to compare the same story, right?
Especially in this microwave society that we've created. Yes.
But there's no comparison. And ironically, the stories that you see are somewhat similar to yours, and it's out there. So why can't yours be as good? So to overcome that is, once again, it's to gain more confidence, right? And whatever that looks like, either you get a mentor, either you surround yourself with people who are like-minded and who will push you in that direction. It's allowing yourself to have grace and forgive yourself. We don't forgive us. I was a bad parent last year, so now I'm a bad parent forever. You know what I mean? That's what we do. Like,
according to your child.
To your child, right?
According to your child, you probably are.
It's absolute. But then again, where's the manual for parenthood?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you have to give yourself grace, right? And then you have to go ahead and be not afraid or don't be fearful of failing.
So when we create this life resume, is there things that we can abstract from it? So if I, like what you just said, all those elements, are we extracting some of those things and say, well, this could be why you feel X, Y, Z? Or, this, especially when you say generational, because we both know that generational means it's gone down your line for God only knows how long.
Correct.
And for you to break it, not only do you free your family, you free yourself. So are we pulling elements out that help? Well, when you work with your clients, are you pulling those elements out and saying, okay, well, this might be a corporate as to why you feel this way, X, Y, Z? Or is this something that we look at to give us an idea of where we've come from and where we are?
It's both, but more importantly, it's looking at it. Because with your professional resume, it could be 2 pages. Your life resume is going to be a book, right?
Literally.
And I really want you to start from 4 when I can remember, right? I fell and hurt my leg and I got over it. I fell on my bike. I mean, it sounds funny, but when you look at everything you've accomplished, there's no need to question yourself today. There's no need for that, right? And to ask yourself, am I worthy? If you put in the work in your life, and you're putting in the work right now today, you are definitely worthy. And you don't need affirmation from somebody else to tell you that. That's not their job. That's you, right? That's your job to tell yourself, yeah, it's cool, right? So everybody told me, when you're writing a book, how's your book different from anybody else's book? It may not be in context, but it's my book. And that's why it's different.
Okay, well, don't say that too many times, because that's usually my question. People tell me, don't say that too many times. That's usually my question. You ask me when they said, so listen, oh, I wrote a book. Okay, what makes your book special?
Right.
Everybody's written a book these days. What makes your book special?
Right.
Okay. So, because the ideology of using that, And I always tell people when you're trying to find purpose,
Right.
if you really do a life resume, you kind of find purpose because you find a trend of things that you've done that you're like, I've been doing this all my life. And I did not realize that this is what I enjoy doing, but I find myself doing it.
And not just that, when you talk about purpose, to piggyback on that, purpose is not what you're always destined to do. Purpose is what you created.
Really?
And, yeah, because in the life resume, for example, I had a degree in government and politics, and I ended up in finance for 16 years. Now, I look back, when I first started in the game, I was a broker with a partner of mine, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was solely for the money, and we learned as we went. That's how that worked for me, right? So 4 years later, I realized that we were doing, really well. And I'm hearing from other banks who were trying to recruit us, and I'm like, I'm self-employed for the rest of my life. But then once again, 2008 hit, it was the crash of the housing market. Right.
Y'all took a beating.
Took a beat. Had to make some changes, right? So I went from being a broker going into the bank, and then I learned what it meant to be a mortgage banker. And then my years from there traveled. So 16 years in now, I'm a CMB. I'm a certified mortgage banker. So I'm the top 800 active in the country out of 297,000 people. So when I say your purpose is something that you create, that's what I created, and that's who I am today. But when I started out, I had no clue. So I tell my clients all the time and friends all the time, don't look for this purpose that you're trying to find. Go back and look at where you've been to and where you're at, and you could also create that opportunity, right? Then you could look back and say, I created my purpose.
Okay. All right. That's a new take on that one. So everybody hang on to your drinks. Hang on. And I mean, not alcoholic. Hang on to your cranberry juices and apple juice. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to switch it and talk about the home buying process. So stick around the Leadership Blend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.
Cut.
All right, so we're going to flip the script a bit because this next two segments are for all you individuals, especially my nonprofit leaders, my church leaders. We typically go into the home buying process with not enough information. So we have a great guy who's been talking about his leadership, but now he's going to switch into his expertise of 16 years to really give us the lowdown on pitfalls as it pertains to the home buying process. So look, give me your background as far as that goes. So let's get into your background.
So awesome. So I've been in lending for 16 years. Started out as a broker, self-employed. I became a loan officer, held high levels and regional roles in lending. So currently right now, I'm a sales manager as well. So I've been in management over 10 years in lending, and I've seen a lot.
I mean, you were around that 2008 debacle. I'm almost tempted to let you explain how that happened.
Right.
I still don't understand how that happened.
It's a long story, but I could definitely get to it on another segment, right? But I would say for right now, when you talk about pitfalls, right, I think the most important thing is that you have to talk to a lender first. I think so often in our mind, we feel like, well, I'm just going to go out there and talk to a real estate agent, or I'm going to go out there and start looking at homes because I'm looking and I want to make sure. But the first thing you will always want to do is speak to a lender, right? When you talk to the lender, there's going to be a tough conversation about, because what you typically think you could afford, you probably can't afford, right? So the conversation is going to be a reality check. So you want to buy this house for $400,000. I get it. You have a car note for $700. You have student loans for $1,200 a month. You have childcare expenses. And I add all this up, you could only afford $145,000.
I just want to say that student loans are the devil. Avoid them at all costs. They're the devil.
They're tough. So, having that conversation with the lender who's knowledgeable and competent, he or she will put it in context as to what's affordable for you. So I think having that dialogue is important, because most people feel like, you know what, even with me, they'll come to me and I have that tough conversation and they're like, no. So here's pitfall number one. They leave from my desk and go talk to somebody else who said, you know what, I'll make this loan for you. I'll find a way to make it happen. Then that loan happens, and then 2 months later, I can't make my payment, right? So rule number one is take the advice of a person that you trust in lending, who's going to lead you. You have to do that, right? That's number one. I think number two is that credit. I'm not against credit repair companies, but when it comes to the home buying process, once again, speaking to the lender is more important, because I have clients who are saying, well, I have credit repair right now and I'm doing this. So here's an example. I had a client who has all her accounts disputed right now because her credit person told her it's the right thing to do. In lending, it holds up the process because I don't know if that dispute is accurate or not. So you're going to have to come back and take it off or confirm that it's accurate so I could move forward. So once again, repair companies are awesome. That works. But my recommendation is that you talk to your lender first before even going down that process, right?
So let me ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
So it pretty much puts stuff in pending. And it's just like with your bank, if it's in pending, I can't move forward with anything because I don't know the outcome, how the outcome is going to end up. Okay.
Historically, it wasn't like that. But then clients were savvy and everything's disputed. Right? Everything's disputed now. So it's like, okay, so we caught on to what's because what happens is that your debt to income ratio is going to reflect what's disputed or what's not. So the whole goal of them disputing it is to have less debt so they can purchase more. Mm. But once again, if you still have that debt, I'm not putting you in a good space if you still have to pay that, right? So the reality is this. The number one pitfall is just not following the process, right? You know, it's really simple. It's like when you go to the doctor, right? Here's my job. Client comes, I'm like a physician, right? Here's the steps. Here's what you have to do. Here's the rehab. Here's this. Here's this. If you don't go to rehab, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, your recovery is not going to be the same, right? If I'm an accountant, it's no different. Here's what I need. I need your W-2s. I need this, and I'll give you this. If you don't give me that, it's not going to be filing time. It's the same with the lender. However, clients come to us and tell us what to do. Hey, I want this FHA loan because I want a lot and I researched and I did this. So most lenders I've noticed, or some lenders, have a tendency of taking orders from the clients because they're hearing what the client is saying and they feel that, okay, let me give the client what they want. However, client, if you go to the doctor, you don't tell your doctor, run a CBC and a panel, and then, you don't talk to your doctor like that, right? So what I'm saying is that if you're going to be a client and listen to the advice that you're getting if you trust the person you're getting it from. And to be honest with you, that cures all. Period. There's no other way to do it, but you just have to go in there, not telling what you want, but finding out what the best options are for you, whether you like it or not. And then from there, we can have another plan. How do you do it in 3 more years? How do you move up? But that's the process, in my opinion.
All right. So again, everybody hold on to your waters and your apple juices. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to get into mindset going into this process. What should your mindset be going into it? So stick around the Leadership Blend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, so we are back with our great guest, Mr. Nasim. So we were talking about pitfalls in the home buying process. So he gave us some good nuggets, but I want to take us back to the beginning. So I want to speak to mindset. Where should my mind be when I say I want to buy a house? Where should my mind immediately go?
When you say that you want to buy a house, you really have to reflect financially where you're at today and where you're going, right? You have to think about, okay, here are my obligations. This is where I'm at, whether I'm renting or I'm moving up. And what do I need to do to prepare myself for this new home? So first thing I typically would tell clients is that you would call a lender and you would do a pre-qualification, right? So that application is going to allow you to figure out, okay, what can I afford? What's my credit score? What's my vitals in my world, so to speak? So after you do the pre-qualification process, our next step is the pre-approval. So the pre-approval is more in depth because I'm going to ask you for your last 2 years W-2s. I'm going to ask you for your last 2 pay stubs. I'm going to ask you for the documentation to confirm what you told me in the pre-qualification, right? Then once we have the pre-approval in hand and I saw your vitals and I know, what your debt's looking like, what your income looking like, what are your assets looking like, at that point, then we'll have a conversation about affordability and what makes sense moving forward. I think that everybody has their reason for why they want to purchase a home. And personally, I would say this. I hear everything, I want a bigger house. I'm tired of paying rent.
That's the biggest one. I think that's how they spin it. Like you see these signs, oh, you're tired of paying rent, you can pay less if you buy a house. That's the new thing.
It is. So I'm tired of paying rent. I have new additions to my family, so I need more space. Generational wealth. I want to leave my house to my kids when I grow, right? And all those are good reasons. So I'm not going to downplay those, but there's really one reason why you should want to buy a home. Simple. It's equity. It's passive income. That's it. That's the only reason why you want to buy a house. Because here's the thing. If you think about a house itself, right? It's 4 walls. It's a foundation. It's a roof. It's not your home. Home is where your heart is. The house is a structure. If this structure could sit here for 5 years and make $100,000 for you, that's an investment into your family, into your life. That's equity. And it's passive income. You don't have to work for it. Right? So we get caught up a lot of times in the structure and how much and this. Listen, if you could look 5 to 10 years later and have tuition for your kids to go to college, that was money well spent initially. Bottom line, equity. Right? So I tell my clients, don't get caught up in, of course, location is important when you're buying a house. There are some things that you have to, look into, but the overall is equity, because that's going to be how you invest back into yourself. Because if you think about it, if you work from 9 to 5 and you get taxed and then you have to pay expenses out, it's hard to get out the hamster wheel, right? Literally, right? So we've all been down that road. So the whole point of this is equity. And if you can see it as an investment, it's going to change your perspective on the process and where you need to be in 5 to 10 years. Because I don't talk about buying a home as a transaction. It doesn't stop there. So what are we going to do in 5 to 10 years? So what are your goals with this house, right? So everybody talks about trying to get in the house. I'm trying to figure out, as this vehicle, so what are you going to use this for in 5 to 10 years?
What are some good answers to that?
Well, in 5 to 10 years, I'm gonna keep this house and rent it out. And then I make some passive income that way. So now I have an investment property.
Is that safe? Like,
Yes.
I have friends that do it, and I've seen it from both sides. They rented it. People destroyed the house. It became a liability-ish. And then I've seen people that rent it and have nice renters, and it. So that's a good move.
Well, here's the thing. If you think about all the apartment complexes in Metro Atlanta, and there's still 11 people still making money off of it, I would just say, yeah. Right? I would say, yeah, it's a good move, right? It's a lot of renters, right? So what happens is that, so once again, we always hear the stories, right? And what happens is that in life, in leadership, you're going to have those challenges. We have to put controls in place to circumnavigate those challenges to make sure that our investment is secured. So for example, if you have a 401k and when the market tanks, people will ask, well, should I put money in a 401k? It normally it performs well. When the market tanks, it could go down, right? So yes, I would say yes, it is. So it could be for investment property. It could be for a starter home, and then you're going to gain some money here and put it down on your move-up house, right? There's options that you could have, or you're going to be here forever. I want a fixed income. I don't want to leave anymore. That's the job right here. So we have a lowest interest rate. I may buy down for you, right? And prepare for that. So what does that look like if you're 60 plus, right? So there's reasons why, and there's plans that we can have, but you should not go into buying a house and not trying to figure out where you're going to be in the next 10 years. So I'm forcing you to tell me what your life may look like. And that's where it gets kind of like, okay, wow, let me sit back and think about this.
Because I don't think anybody thinks about what happens after you get the house. Because I've never heard anybody say that.
Here's a prime example. You're in the military. And I'm asking you, so you're buying a house. Hey, I want a 30-year mortgage and I want X, Y, Z. Okay, cool. Well, how long are you going to be in town? Oh, I'll be deployed in 3 years. So you don't need a 30-year mortgage. Maybe an interest-only loan if you're not going to have the house that low, right? Is it going to be rental property when you leave? What does that look like, right? So it's a different conversation, right? So each thing is not going to be the same. And I have to figure out personally, where are you going with this? And I'm going to force you to help me figure out where you're going with this.
Okay, so now my question is, because the average Joe is not going to have that. The average just lender is not going to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. Who typically has that level of conversation with their clients? Is it like people in your position or people... Like, I've never heard that from just regular lenders. So who should they seek out to ask them those kind of questions?
Me.
I set myself up
for that one. Because you know I was going to say that. Because you know I was going to say that.
I set myself up for that one, which is actually fine. On that note, how does everybody get in touch with you?
I'm at New Res. I'll also have some, I'll leave something behind with some links on how to get in contact with me. But, here's the thing. If you're talking to somebody and you want to help your family and help prepare yourself for the next level, I'll put the onus on you to say, listen, I want to buy a house. In the next 10 years, here's where I think I need or want to be at. And then have that person help you create this plan. Because you're right, all lenders aren't created equal. It's not going to have that conversation. But here's the thing. It's your life, right? And unfortunately, some things we have to look up and figure out ourselves, right? Right? So if you want to do something in life, so you have children, right? And many people just have children off the whim and then figure out how to survive day to day, right?
Literally.
Then there's people who plan to have a family and figure out, okay, here's what this looks like. So I would just say, like anything else in life, where do you want to be in 10 years, 5 to 10 years, right? And have the conversation and don't just look to do something transactional, right? This is the biggest purchase you're probably going to make in your life until you buy another one or an airplane or an island, right?
Island.
Island, right?
Island.
Right. So take your time and invest in yourself and have that conversation with yourself and have an honest conversation. Here's where I need to be. Help me get to that spot.
One last question, because I actually thought we were done, but since I have an expert here, I need to ask this question.
Yeah.
Credit and Credit Karma. I've been told that Credit Karma is not the best one to navigate where you actually stand as it pertains to buying a house. Is that true?
It is. So a pull from a mortgage person is going to be the most accurate, vital that you're ever going to get. If you look at your credit cards and they say, here's your FICO, those scores are typically maybe 30 to 50 points higher than what an actual pull is going to be. So I wouldn't use that as my litmus test to say, oh, I have an 800 score. Maybe it's a 740 score, because that's not accurate. It's not a pull, right? It's just like a soft pull. It's a check. If you come to a mortgage person and clients always tell me, hey, my score is 800. Hey, you guys telling me it's 710. That's not true. I'm like, listen, this is your credit report. Here are some of the judgments on here. Here's everything that's not on Credit Karma. Here's the difference, right? And this is the actual pull. But what I'm happy is that people are looking now at those things to kind of be aware of credit. Historically, it wasn't like that, right?
Yeah,
so it's a start. Right. So I'm happy to see that, right? But I would just say, if you want to know your most accurate scores and vital and where you're at, is to go to a lender if you're pulling for a home and have them pull it.
Final thoughts.
Life is unique right now. It's a lot of social.
That's a nice word. That's a nice word.
It's a lot of social injustices. There's COVID. A lot of families impacted. A lot of people who are self-employed who are not making it right now. There are parents who are homeschooling children who never had to homeschool before, and their whole life has been rearranged. And wellness, mental health and wellness is probably at a low for the majority of people, even minorities, more so than a lot of other people right now. Here are my thoughts. You have an option to be scared and fearful, or option to conquer and do what you've been doing for the majority of your life, right? This too shall pass, like everything else. And I'm not dismissing what's happening. What I'm saying is, at the end of this tunnel, there's going to be light. And the goal is, how do we dance in the rain? How do we party in the dark, right? Because as soon as you come out of it, this is when things change, right? This is when life becomes something more, and you have more wisdom. So I challenge everybody to be optimistic, invest in yourself, invest in your wellness, be vigilant and be safe, because it's real out here right now.
Yeah.
Right? Seriously, it's a lot going on, but ultimately take care of yourself first, take care of your family, and be aware. Just be conscious, and you'll get through this. I'm gonna get through it.
Yeah, I don't have a choice.
Yeah, we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice to get through it.
We don't have a choice. So we're gonna make it work.
Yep. So we're gonna get through this together.
All right, everybody. There you have it. Wiser words have not been spoken. Special thanks to our guest, Mr. Nasim, on today, and you'll be able to find his information at the end of the video and the card at the end. So we will see you guys next Sunday, same time, same place, on the Leadership Blend television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.